Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Great British Adventures podcast. We're doing something a little different today and taking a trip down memory lane with some of the incredible conversations with people who embody the spirit of adventure in the most inspiring, surprising, and downright remarkable ways. As we come to the end of 2024 and look forward to a new year, I thought it'd be the perfect time to celebrate some of the standout moments that I've shared on this channel. So I've gone back through the archives and compiled a collection of clips from the top 10 episodes since this podcast began. And yes, this is a proper countdown, starting at number 10 and working our way to the most popular episode of all time, as collated from the listening figures from Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm not counting YouTube in this. So think of this episode as a greatest hits album, but with more mountain climbs, open seas, personal triumphs, and maybe the odd moment that will make you laugh out loud. Whether you're a long-time listener of the podcast or this is your very first time tuning in, I hope this episode inspires you to embrace adventure in whatever form it takes for you. Because if there's one thing I've learned from these conversations, it's that adventure isn't just about climbing the highest peaks or crossing the biggest oceans. It can simply be about stepping outside your own comfort zone, saying yes to possibility, and living with a sense of curiosity and wonder. So sit back, grab a cup of tea, or maybe lace up your walking boots, and let's dive in to the top 10 episodes of the Great British Adventures podcast. Kicking off at number 10 is the amazing Pelumi Nubi, and my conversation with her was hands down one of the most fun experiences I've had in all my recordings. Pelumi has this incredible, infectious energy. She's positive, exciting, and uplifting. Anyone in her presence can't help but feel great about themselves and the world around them. She's a big believer in the power of stepping out of your comfort zone, especially through solo travel. It's something that's helped her build strength and resilience, and she's got some incredible stories to tell along the way. Earlier this year, Pelumi embarked on a truly epic journey, setting off from London to Lagos, driving between the two places she calls home in her beloved tiny Peugeot 106, which she also slept in along the way. She crossed multiple countries, dealt with tricky border crossings, and opened herself up to some of the most amazing experiences imaginable. In this clip, she's talking about riding the iron ore train, otherwise known as the legendary Snake of the Sahara. Something that is epic, bizarre, and incredibly dangerous in equal measure.
So I knew from the get-go that it wasn't just going to be a drive. I was going to drive 3 weeks, probably a little bit more. I could be done with it. I intentionally left it to be longer. Originally, it was meant to be 3 months, and then I didn't start when I wanted to start, so it cut down to about 2 months, and then it ended up being 74 days in total. So that allowed me to stop in places, culture immerse myself, try the new food, enjoy local. So I tried to connect, thank God for social media, connect with some local people. They could take me on day tours and just try activities so that I could. And that's another thing I wanted to showcase the African continent. I was able to ride the iron ore train, Mauritania.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
That was fun.
I highlighted this because you did something.
I did something
incredibly insane. And I say this because I say especially as a female solo traveler.
I know.
So the iron ore train, it's this big freight train of iron ore that passes through. This was in the country of Mauritania.
Mauritania, yes.
And so I think anyone who's seen maybe videos of people who jump on trains and travel to, cross country, especially in like bigger continents than Europe, there's I suppose a bit of a culture of people who do this, who will just get on a random train that's going somewhere, and then it might take several days, and then they will arrive somewhere completely random. This is a multiple carriage train, like probably
3 kilometers.
3 kilometers long.
Yeah, it's one of the longest trains in the world.
Okay,
it's called the Snake of the Sahara.
Okay, transporting iron ore. So I guess there's a movement of people who jump on it to travel and use it to travel, but it's a very small niche thing.
Very, very niche.
So what made you want to get on this random train that you wouldn't always probably be certain where it was going, when it was going,
when it was going to get there, how it was going to get there, if you're going to be safe being on it.
Yeah, being in, and it was an open top carriage.
Yep.
Sitting on basically gravel.
I don't know. That goes everywhere.
Sleeping on it. On your own.
Yeah.
Going through the night in the complete wilderness.
Yes.
Where there might be other people, probably 2 kilometers down on the train who were also doing the same.
Yeah, basically. It's literally how you described it. So I remember seeing it online, social media, heavily influenced by social media. I was like, what is that? Like, that looks epic. I'm an adventure kind of thrill seeker. I kind of sprinkled it through my travel. And this was the thing. This was the thing I wanted to do in Mauritania. And I remember even my guide, because like you said, it's carrying iron ore from the mines to the ocean, basically, where it's then transported. And there's a carriage where people actually pay and stay. But unfortunately, you do need to say there is a dark part of it where people do climb this out of no choice. So I don't want to glamorize it. There are some people that literally do die on this train, because if you fall out of it, you're literally gone, So my guide thought I was going to go in the carriage where people and women and all of that with loads are staying. But I went to experience this iron ore thing. It was just a thing I've seen. And I was just like, why not? It's something to try once in a time.
Even though it's dangerous.
Even though it's dangerous. Life is dangerous, We just got to do what we got to do. The pre-preparation is so interesting. You get to get the turban, and you have to get the ski glasses, because it's going everywhere, into your face.
It's all the dust.
All the dust, all of that. So you got to turban up. It's cold, so you got to get like a blanket. I had heat warmers on my hand. Preferably wearing clothes where you're happy to get rid of, because it just gets brutally dirty. And I remember, so we got there. This train has no specific time. You're just kind of hoping it comes. So the good sign was at least there were people waiting around for it. So I know I had not missed it. And then it was meant to come at a particular time, or suggested. It was a suggested time. It was getting dark. I was like, oh, this train is not. And then you just see it in the distance. And it was humongous. And it just rode past you. And it is like a snake. It's just going past. And I'm like, what have I signed up to? Like, the fear goes down your back. And the no translator, lack of communication, it was guiding me. I was like, no, I want to get on the iron ore. So I actually went and run, because literally you have this time window where they let you on, and then it's just moving. It's like a moving thing.
It doesn't stop.
It stops, but like you don't know how long for. It's not like the number is announcing it's about to, now you get
there's no
all on board, there's none of that. It's just kind of when it moves is when it moves. So I didn't know how long I had. So I climbed up to like the last carriage. And I was like, what am I doing? And I'm in this dust and stuff like that. But honestly, it was one of my most memorable experiences. You're sleeping under the stars. And I'm just like, it's just a moment you would go, how did I get here? Like, and it was cold. And I remember it stopped in the middle of the night. So all I hear, I was kind of half asleep. It's so hard to fall asleep because you're rocking right side to side. And I hear like and the train stops. And I don't know why. The worst imagination, I'm like, we're getting ambushed. I'm about to die.
This is in the dead of night.
This is dead of night. This is like 2 a.m. Something like on my own.
No idea where you are.
No idea where I am. I'm trying to quickly bring out my phone to see Google Maps to my pinpoint. So just something. I couldn't flash because I'm just like, I'm not meant to be here. It's kind of illegal. Like, you shouldn't be jumping on this kind of train. And then they were loading a camel. I did not know this at this time, but all I hear is, have you ever been where they're loading a camel? It's the most horrible noise.
A camel?
A camel. So it's like horror. And I'm like, but I didn't know this was what was happening at the time. I just hearing this weird noise. The train has stopped. And that was it. I was like, that's it. I have overdone it this time. I should not be here. So I quickly tried to pull my flashlight just to see what's going on. And I see people, and then I see the car. I was like, oh, they're loading the car. It's a stop. The relief that came with that. And then, we just kept on going. But it was one for the books. And woke up the next day, sat on top of the iron ore, eating the apple, covered in dust, just like, what is life?
Would you do it again?
If you pay me enough. Maybe with company, why not? But I think it's once in a lifetime kind of experience. I won't willingly volunteer to do it again. Yeah.
Okay. It's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did you do it?
think it was just for the adventure. It was just for some things you just got to do. You know, skydive isn't there in my bucket list. I don't know how people do it. It's kind of facing the fear and just overcoming it. It's kind of just moving something away from the unknown. It's like I've experienced it now. It can never be taken away from me. And yeah, I like to approach life with that sometimes, whereby it's like, I've done it once and I know not to do it again. Sometimes you got to do it that way.
Coming in at number 9 is my conversation with Adrienne Gordon, the founder of Sweet Pea Market Garden in Cambridgeshire. Adrienne's story is all about growth, both literally and figuratively. She's built something truly special, turning a passion for organic farming into a thriving market garden that not only feeds people, but also inspires them to think differently about how food is grown. Adrienne is certified organic, which means she's deeply committed to farming in a way that's kind to the earth and free from harmful chemicals. Her approach is rooted in the principles of regenerative agriculture, where nurturing the soil is just as important as growing the crops. It's a philosophy that's as much about creating a healthier planet as it is about producing delicious, fresh vegetables. What really stands out about Adrienne is her connection to the land. She's not just running a business, she's cultivating a way of life that values community, sustainability, and a deep respect for nature. In this clip, Adrienne shares why she wanted to set up a market garden and why we should all consider taking a well-earned break in the winter months.
It's a love of my life. And then growing plants is there's so much magic in it. Like, it's so amazing to take something that was a tiny seed and turn it into a plant in a few months that you can eat. It's kind of like, it's unbelievable in a way, because we're not connected to it, or I wasn't connected to it. So I think the kind of, there's so many parts of it, but it just makes sense. Like, in terms of where I want to place my energy in the world, in a world that is experiencing like mass extinction, climate change, like decreasing life expectancy, like increasing kind of social, economic division. I just wanted to be doing something that's like feels worthwhile and is of benefit to people. And then plants and vegetables is the niche that makes sense for me. So yeah, and a little bit of, I want to show people that this is possible, and that we can do things a different way. Yeah, and with the climate change, mass extinction thing, like, the resilience of my family and my community is really important to me. And if I have a small patch of land that can grow food and save seed and weather the world's like potential disasters, then that feels like a really valuable thing to be investing in. Yeah.
What does it take to set up and go on this voyage of creating a market garden?
Probably a certain amount of naivety. I think anyone who starts a big venture or a business or an adventure, extreme sports, anything like that, doesn't necessarily realize the full extent of the thing that they're undertaking. And you kind of get into it and then you just figure it out as you go along. In practical terms, access to land, but actually access to land is hard. But once you have that land, you need knowledge and skills, and you need resources, you need finance or community backing or a lot of help, a lot of enthusiastic family and friends, and a willingness to like fail, I guess, as well, as with most things. I'm not very good at that, actually. I'm quite a perfectionist and I get very frozen. I get the kind of freeze state where I just can't make decisions. And I'm definitely in a practice of working my way out of that through starting a market garden. I'm much better at this time of year. In the winter, I can't make myself do anything. But that's another reason to run a market garden, is because it's seasonal. I can move with my own energy and not be expected to work 8 hours a day in the winter out on the land because I'm being paid to do a job that is that. I can make my own decisions about, okay, at the moment, I can't really function or leave the house, so I'm not going to push through that. I'm just going to rest now and then go all out when we get back into spring.
It's almost like the seasons are like the changing of the tide, in that you can try and swim against the tide, but it's not going to be very easy, and you're going to put a lot of effort in. But when you wait for the tide to turn, then when you bring the effort and the energy, everything goes with you. When the sun comes out and everything gets warmer and you get these warmer months, when just nature just starts just flourishing, that's when you grow as a person as well, to match that energy, to
and
nature.
I don't know if that's specific to me or if all humans have that to some extent. Like, maybe I'm a more extreme version of it, but I think it's mad that we're trying to continue to work at the same level. Like, we expect the same level of productivity in the winter as we do in the spring or in the summer. I mean, I have the kind of somewhat opposite life to most people I know in the summer, because that's my busiest time and I'm working all the time and I don't have holidays and things like that. Although maybe in the future I'll be able to. Whereas most people take their time off in the summer. So I guess that's different. But that's another thing I'm trying to work out, is how can I make this place also a place where I rest and have a nice time and socialise. So I'm doing more evening barbecues and things here, so I get to enjoy the space as well as looking at all of the weeds that need to be removed, or plants that need to get in the ground. Or
well, talk about how you've been able to create some balance in your life now that you're 2 seasons in. That you've had a lot of hard work in getting this up and running, and it's still an evolving plot of land. But now you've got the experience behind you, and now you're saying that you're learning to take breaks when there's breaks naturally in the seasons.
I guess for me, that's things like making the decision not to try and sell vegetables in the winter months when it's hard to I haven't had a lot of success with the winter vegetables I have tried to grow, but also it's quite a miserable job in January, February, harvesting cold, wet things and then trying to wash them and pack them. It's not enjoyable. And it's also when I'm kind of at my lowest energy wise. So choosing to not work at that time, and I work in a cafe over the winter instead. So I'm indoors, I'm still generating an income, I'm seeing people and having those relationships. And then the other kind of things that I've learned is to invite people here more and have a plan really at the start of the year about what the year looks like in terms of community events and things like that, like volunteer days, so that when we get into June and I really don't want to be asking people to come and help me out, I've already asked, and people already know that that's the opportunity to come and hang out here. I mean, a lot of the big jobs here do get done by a group of people, like the squash planting and things like that.
Sliding into number 8 is my conversation with the inspiring Jessica Hepburn, author, adventurer and mountaineer. Jessica's story is one of courage, determination, and an unrelenting drive to push the limits of what's possible. She joined me to talk about her latest book, Save Me from the Waves, a powerful and deeply personal account of her journey, both physical and emotional, to conquer the highest mountain in the world. It's a story that weaves together her incredible adventures in the world's most challenging environments with her reflections on life, loss, and finding meaning in the face of adversity. Jessica describes herself as the unlikely athlete, but her achievements tell a different story. She's one of the few people in the world to have completed the Pond to Peak Challenge, swimming the English Channel, and summiting Mount Everest. In her latest book, she delves into the transformative power of the sea, the mountains, and everything in between, reminding us that adventure isn't just about the places we go, it's about the person we become along the way. In this clip, Jessica shares why she decided to take on her most physical challenge yet.
After the sea, I think there was a calling back to the natural world, a calling back to something that was bigger than me. And the mountains, are very similar to the sea in that they decide nature decides who can climb them. And that's really been an important spiritual journey for me, sort of accepting that I'm minuscule and that something bigger than me, is in control of everything, that's been really important. I just needed to go on another adventure. And I am also someone who's very driven by new experiences. So once I'd done, it's so important to me to stay in touch with the water. Like in this new book, Save Me from the Waves, I talk about the water becoming a home to me. Like it's somewhere where I feel safe and I have to stay in touch with it. Every week I have to get into ideally open water, but it could be any sort of water, to sort of, it's almost like it's a memory of like that extraordinary journey I went on the Channel that takes me back somewhere that feels safe and that I feel happy. But equally, I'm not someone who's like, right, I've done the Channel now I need to go and swim the Atlantic, like I wanted to do something different. I wanted to have a different experience. And I think that the call to the mountains was about, doing something completely different, because I do want to live this rich life, and maybe, you wrote down earlier about talking about like creating a story. I'm trying to create I'm trying to make my life into a good story. Definitely. I mean, and not just not in real life, but also I'm writing that story. I think of it like that. I'm sort of like when I get to the end of my life and I look back, has that been a good story for people to read? I sort of almost think obviously literally because I'm writing books, but also, has that been an entertaining and interesting life? Like I'm really driven by that.
You said in your book you wanted to listen to every episode of Desert Island Disc whilst walking to the top of the world. An Everest of listening needed an Everest of walking. And so many times in the book you're talking about the times you were out training for Everest and the connections you had with the episodes of Desert Island Disc and the people who are on there. So much so that you talk about, for instance, walking in Scotland with Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And even though I'd been consuming all these little nuggets of you training with different people, I still forgot that you were listening to them. I just thought that you just happened to be walking with Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Such is the way that you write things. You have these moments with these celebrities and their stories.
Yeah, and I really love that, and I really love that readers are getting that, because the book's been out for a couple of weeks now, and you start to realize what your book is for a start, but also it's really great when readers really get what you were trying to do. And because not just what I'm trying to do in writing, but also this is sort of what I realized sort of happened, was that over a period of time after I started out on this challenge to listen to every episode of Desert Island Disc, that in the beginning it was like I'm putting my headphones on and I'm listening to a piece of audio. And then gradually over time, it became like they were my companions. And so in the course of the book, the sort of the language shifts from I'm listening to, you know, Paul Weller or Emma Thompson or Kelly Holmes talking, you know, like I'm listening to their episodes on Desert Island Disc to I'm walking with Paul McCartney, I'm walking with Louis Armstrong, I'm walking with Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook or whatever. And yeah, I really wanted to, you know, show that shift and people to feel that shift. And they became my friends, you know.
You're the type of person, it wouldn't surprise me that you would have all these friends anyway, from your life in theatre.
Thank you.
And just being so warm and colourful.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Tom. Yeah, Paul, if you want to be my real life friend, that's fine.
It surprised me as well, reading in your book, that you said that Scotland was one of the best places to train for Everest.
Yeah, it is. You ask any mountaineer. I mean, one of the things that really, I've always loved Scotland. My ancestors came from the borders. My name is Jessica Hepburn. And Hepburn, apparently I was told as a young child by my father, was because our ancestors were cattle raiders, border cattle raiders, and Hepburn means hop over the burn, and they would hop over the border, the burn of the border with their stolen cattle, and also I worked in theatre, as you know, for many years, and I went to the Edinburgh Festival every year, and I was on the board of the Lyceum Theatre there, so I've always had a really strong affinity with Scotland, and visited it, and Edinburgh is my favourite city in the UK after London, which is the city where I was born and grew up and live today. Not, you know, I feel a bit bad saying that I have favourites, but yeah, London is my home. And but I had never been to the Highlands in winter. And I mean, I was just like, it blew my mind how much snow there was. And, you know, I was also like really embarrassed being a southerner, a Londoner. Like, there's a smattering of snow down here in winter and the whole of London stops, you know, like no one can get to work. You know, it's headline news. You just go up to Scotland and see how much snow there is in winter. I mean, it's just like another world. And also, you know, like, it's also the mountain capital of the UK. I mean, there are hundreds of mountains, not as high as the Himalayas, of course, but like there are hundreds of mountains to climb, and ice and also, you know, ice climbing, which is something that you need to do on Everest and the high mountains ranges. So it was amazing training ground.
How did you feel approaching all these different stages of your training for Everest? When, for instance, you mentioned ice climbing there, which would terrify me, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think was made the Everest channel particularly hard for me, because like, I mean, like, yeah, I couldn't swim very well, that is true, so I had to learn the crawl for the channel, and I couldn't run very well either. But like, essentially with swimming and running, you know, there's limited technical requirements, whereas like with Everest, it's not just you know, endurance, in being able to go on and on and on. There is the sort of technical climbing elements. Like, I'd never put on a harness or tied myself to a rope. I didn't know what a crampon was. Like, I you know, let alone crossed a steel ladder across a crevasse with hundreds of meters of blackness below you. Like, that stuff terrified me. I mean, I'd say, like, if you've got a fear of death or heights, you're not going to go anywhere near it. And you have to cross those ladders straight out of base camp. They're very famous on Everest, and they're part of the first part of the ascent, which is called the Khumbu Ice Valley. It's really, really that sort of those technical elements I found really, really hard. Yeah.
Up next, at number 7, is one of my favourite recordings. It's my conversation with Emma and Dave Corthwaite, the inspiring couple behind Big Sky Hideaway. Big Sky is a unique campsite in Lincolnshire that places nature at the heart of everything it does. We recorded this episode on site, and throughout the recording you can hear the birdsong that makes this place so special. Big Sky isn't your typical campsite. Their wildflower meadow has just 12 pitches, despite having room for many more. That's because Dave and Emma believe in giving their guests the space they need to truly connect with the natural world that they've worked so hard to cultivate on their site. But the charm of Big Sky doesn't stop there. Alongside traditional pitches, you can stay in quirky accommodations like an American school bus or a double-decker bus, or even their land pod. And it's much more than just a campsite. It's a community hub where people come together to share stories in the barn or around a campfire. It's a haven for reconnecting with the outdoors and rediscovering the simple joys of life. In this clip, Dave and Emma share their incredible discovery of how they could use their land, or more specifically their grass, to heat up hot water for their guest showers, proving that sustainability and creativity go hand in hand.
Just by being here, I've learned so much. I never held an electric screwdriver before we moved here. And, now 2 years on, just from persevering and not wanting to have to rely on other people. And I think that's one of our strengths. We know that whatever it is, we can learn new skills and get to the bottom of it. So all the way through, it's just this slow process of working out how to solve a problem. And one of the problems is most of our site is off grid. We don't have water, pumping out of a tap in every corner. And although most people who come here, most people who go camping don't really feel the need for a shower. I think it's a nice chance to get grubby and really appreciate the shower when you get home. But some folks stay for a few days, and it's always been at the back of my mind that I want them to feel more comfortable and to enjoy the experience. Basically, I just want them to enjoy Big Sky. So showers was a big hope when we started this year. Now, last year we've got a load of grass everywhere, camping pitches, storytelling areas. It's just constantly growing, an inch a day. So it needs to go somewhere. And last year I fell in a pile of grass, and I had no idea that it gets hot. That's how it composts down. And so this year I've slowly been kind of refining the idea of putting grass into bays, and then the composting process heats up big barrels of water. And then we've got a solar powered pump which runs through a shower head, and bang. 2 nights ago I had a shower up at the school bus. The water was 48 degrees, and that's just from grass. And I think there's so many little elements to that which are exciting. One, if someone looks at it, they can't quite believe it. And then I'm like, put your hand in the grass. It's going to be fine because you'll have a shower soon. And then put your hand in the water. You could feel the heat. You can't keep your hand in there. It's all just really exciting. The grass has to go somewhere. Why not there? We've got guests on site who want showers during the season that the grass is growing. It's just this lovely cyclical process, and it all makes sense. I'd never say that we're geared up to be eco-friendly. That just feels like a buzzword to me. There's so many sensible decisions that are made if you decide to run a business, definitely on land. We've got solar panels everywhere. We spend a lot less in electricity all year round. That's common sense, whether you're living in a small house or running a business like this. Being able to heat up our water using grass clippings, which aren't offensive. It's not like you're putting your food waste outside someone's window just so they can have a shower. It's just grass. It smells nice.
I did spy one of your creations last night. And yeah, like you said, at first it's very unassuming. It's just a pile of grass. There's a water butt inside it. Couldn't tell any difference. Not until I lifted the lid, and because it was in the evening, steam just kind of came off.
Yeah.
And you put your hand in, it was like, this is like hot tub temperature.
It's
water.
not steam. It's not steam, Tom. It's excitement.
But it made me think that it's so amazing that you are using the land in a way that it gives back into the system, like you said, a cyclical system, which meets the needs of your guests. And it made me think, say, well, typically if you want to heat up water, you need some energy. So to get some energy, you would mine underground, pull up some oil, refine the oil, transport the oil around, burn the oil, and it then heats up this water. Which, when you actually think of it in that sense, is such a
madness,
exhaustive process to get our energy.
Yeah. So many levels to it, so many stages you've got to go through.
Considering humans are, capable of such intelligence and cleverness, we are stupid in the way we use our resources and our time and our energy. It maddens me. I think the most important thing we can all do is look after our own little corner of the planet, even if that's just our garden.
And spread the word.
Yeah, and share it. But I think people really need to experience something with their own eyes and hands before they can take on that lesson. And then it needs to be habitual. I wouldn't expect anybody who comes here for a week to, maybe they'd go home for a week and they'd use a bit less water. I'd imagine after that they kind of forget a bit because everything's hidden. Pipes are behind walls and under the ground. But when you do something time and time again, and this is why we really advocate for getting people outside, because you start to feel the processes, you start to feel reality, rather than something that we made just to make life comfortable, which isn't always the answer.
Yeah. Not everyone has a patch of land which has a lot of grass, but you do.
And we share it. That's really key. Like the thousands, millions of acres in this country that are privately owned and no one is allowed to set foot on it. There's no right to roam in this country. There's no Almansratten, and that's a real shame. And yeah, so I think we always wanted to share. It's at the heart of the Yes Tribe. It's been at the heart of our adventures and work. And this business was still learning, and it is a business, and it's kind of weird to have gone from complete voluntary work with the Yes Tribe to having our own business where we get paid for it. But there is a way, if you kind of stick with your values and do your thing, whatever you're good at, to do both. And we're really enjoying that process.
It sounds like you've gone full circle from the 25-year-old self who was
a loser.
Well.
Oh, you're not a loser.
I
was
in that system where they had a job, where they were paying into this circular system of paying in somewhere to live. Don't know. Did you own a home at the time?
Yeah, I did, but only because I lived in. Yeah, it was a mortgage.
Yeah,
but it was very cheap in South Wales in 1999.
Yeah, but
£35,000, baby.
That all wasn't making you happy.
Oh no.
But you've gone off, and 15 years or so later, all these experiences to actually find something that you are happy with and that you want to then go back into, say, okay, I want to commit, because this is obviously, there's a huge cost that kind of comes in with a plot of land like this, and that needs to be paid off over time, and you need to, like you said, it's a business, so you need to keep that income coming every year to pay off that cost.
Yeah.
Do you understand like what I've said about you? You're kind of back in that position you were again. You've
on
got
a larger scale.
On a larger scale, but in a way that is working in a way that you're happy with, that you're in control of, and it excites you, whereas perhaps it wasn't exciting you back then.
Yeah, I mean the differences are enormous, and yeah, I own a home for the first time in like 18 years, but everything else has changed. The way I see the world, the way I feel about my time. To go from, we've all heard the old story. You need to have a house and a job in the area to pay for the house and the car to get between work, and then suddenly you're just in a trap. You're in a cycle, and I hated that. I just wanted freedom, and freedom for me is variety. The ability to do something new every single day. And not one day since I quit my last job has been the same as any other day. Not one of them. And that will continue till the day I die. You know, you sit still, you keep on doing the same thing, you just rust. And then things break. And that's no way to be, not for me. Here, yeah, I mean, owing a lot of money is a gentle pressure point for us, and maybe a bit of a motivation. But I would say that the thing that really gets people throughout working life is the fear of what to do if you're not paid the money that you're used to getting paid. And we've both had, you know, tons of different jobs. We know that if this, for whatever reason, doesn't work out, I mean, it's working out. But if it didn't, let's just hypothesize, then we'd find something else. If we really weren't happy with it and it wasn't working, we wouldn't stay just because summer's great income-wise. You know, that would be insane. We'd go and find something else that floated the boat for our new selves. And so there's no more trap. You know, it's just let's work hard. Let's make the most of what we've got. And if the time comes where it's not right for us to be here and to do this, then rock and roll. Let's go find something else. But for now, I mean, it's coming together. It's really coming together.
Yeah.
I reckon. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's coming together.
Taking the spot at number 6 is my conversation with James Holt, head of Midnight Runners London, who shared some truly inspiring insights about personal growth and building confidence through a running community. James has always been someone who's passionate about bringing people together through fitness, but his journey is as much about self-discovery as it is about running. In this conversation, he opened up about how his own confidence has evolved, starting from a place of self-doubt to becoming a leader who empowers others to push past their own boundaries. Under James's leadership, Midnight Runners London has grown into a thriving community of people who are not just running, but also supporting each other on their own individual journeys. James's story is a reminder that the most important race is the one you run with yourself. In this clip, James shares his thoughts on why Midnight Runners is so popular.
I think we have hit a really good sort of conjunction of lots of good things. So the ethos of it being a social running group, like we're not an athletics group, we don't have a UK athletics license, and we run with music on our sort of Tuesday night runs, which kind of gives it this like such high energy feel. So people, you're not really there thinking about the running. Like for me, it's the social, like who am I going to catch up with and like what stories am I going to hear over the course of the run. And I think people use it as that. It's a chance to meet new people, catch up with old friends. But I think this is the way it's positioned with the music and the fact that we stop every couple of Ks. So you're never running for that long, means that the group kind of stays together. What's difficult without doing that is it just gets so strung out because you've got such a wide ability, mix of paces. And, as a run leader, that is one of the most challenging things. Like, how do you cater for a broader audience as possible? Because even when we say we're inclusive, of course, if, you have never run in your life, you're probably going to struggle to get around the sort of 7-8K we do. But I think within reason, we try to be as inclusive as possible. I remember my two sisters came a few years ago for their first Midnight Runner session, because clearly I talk about it too much, when I was back home for Christmas. And they're not runners. They got round and they loved it. They struggled with the running, but they kind of understood why I was so passionate about it, because there is just something about being in this. It almost feels like a flash mob that's moving. Yeah. And, tourists are taking photos and...
that definitely seems to be what I take away from it, is how you make the noise and you make an impact and you turn heads. You can always tell when Midnight Runners are around. First of all, because you play music so loud.
Yeah.
But in such a great way, because there's times when I've turned up and I've not been feeling great, but as soon as like that music just switches on when you go 3, 2, 1, go, I can just kind of just lose it all, and I can just be in the flow. I can just have this ethereal moment when I'm just like running around like London at night with Tower Bridge illuminated and all the skyscrapers and this music blasting, and just feeling like I can just let go of like all my problems and just be part of a flow of other people just going around, and like you're leading and your crew members are leading. And
you said that so well. And it's such escapism, like very pure, very easy. Because when I've had tough days at work, it could be 5 minutes to 7 and I'm feeling pretty shitty. But the moment you sort of turn up and you see those kind of faces and waving, and you drop off your bag, and the sort of cold air might hit you in the sort of the winter months, and then the music starts playing and we're all running, it just completely shifts your mentality. Like I've never been to a run where I felt worse. Like it's always helped, and it just kind of gives you a bit of perspective of what's important in life. And I think having connections and feeling part of something that's bigger than yourself is just like a super nice thing to have.
And music is so important to your Tuesday night sessions. It's there from the start. And then, like you said, you stop 4 times for boot camp, which has a music of some form integrated into it.
Yes.
It can be something as traditional as like squats, sit-ups, other exercises. Sometimes they've been there when there's some form of dance.
Something a bit wild,
You do group exercises, there's partner exercises. Sometimes you get 200 odd people all linking arms and doing something crazy.
Yeah.
All within central London in tiny cramped spaces.
Yeah.
This is what I think makes you more unique to other run communities out there. It's just this connection to bring people together with music, but also just fun as well. Has that been there from the start?
It has, yeah. And the doing exercises in a group is just quite a nice excuse to have a chat with someone, because if you're saying, right, well, I'm going to do some crunches whilst you do some mountain climbers, you're going to end up having a conversation. And there's so many opportunities for that. And the fact that 2 people have turned up to perhaps their first time at this community, that they're going to want to have a chat with a few people. And I think we do so much to break the ice, not in a corporate icebreakery kind of way, that it just feels very organic and easy. Like when I first joined, I was very, very shy, and I just kind of would stand at the back of the group and occasionally have a few chats with people. But it's completely changed who I am and like brought me out of my shell.
Hitting the list at number 5 is my conversation with the one and only Justin True. Weightlifter, ultra triathlete, all-round madman, Justin is someone who loves challenging himself in the most extreme ways. He's the kind of person who thrives on pushing his limits, always seeking the next crazy challenge to conquer, whether it's lifting the Dinny Stones or taking on America's longest triathlon. If it's difficult, you can bet Justin's all in. His approach to adventure is all about embracing that screw it, just do it attitude, diving headfirst into new challenges without overthinking it or meticulously planning. Some might call it reckless, but I think it perfectly captures the spirit of adventure, where sometimes you just need to take the plunge and see where it leads. In this clip, Justin shares one of his wild adventures. His attempt to summit all 3 of the British peaks in just 24 hours. And spoiler alert, it didn't all go to plan.
Yeah, so I was living in Spain at the time. Had just met my girlfriend when I was traveling with my buddy, and I'd moved back to Spain. She was living in Barcelona, so I moved back to Barcelona after we spent about 8 months talking. Was like, oh, I'm going to do this. Moved over there, and I don't know what I did or why I was thinking it. I had a weekend available, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do 3 peaks. I don't know what spurred it, because like you said, I just never did endurance things. And so for some reason, it just kind of like piqued my interest. And I know a lot of people, they have cars and crew and everything. And I'm like, well, I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends here. Like, I'm just going to go do it. So I rented a car, drove to Snowdon, did Snowdon in the freezing cold, went up the wrong one. I went up Crib Gotch, which I didn't know. I was like, I remember looking at reviews and people were like, it's so easy. My grandma can do it, Snowdon. And I'm like, okay, cool. This will be the easiest one. I'm going up Crib Gotch at like
it's different ways.
11 p.m. And I'm like, my grandma is not doing this. I was like, there's no way my grandma is doing this. And then it's pouring rain, of course. And it's about either start of September or start of August. I can't remember, somewhere around there in the fall. And obviously my phone wasn't waterproof back then. My phone breaks coming down. And I'm sitting in the car. I have a flight out of Edinburgh the next day. Because I plan, I'm doing this in 24 hours. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm doing it. And I was never a runner at that point either. I was just lifting. And my phone broke. I was like, well, what do? I have no way to navigate anymore. I didn't print out MapQuest like we used to when we were kids. And so I find a youth hostel down there. And I go in, I'm like, hey, does anybody have a bag of rice? The old school, putting your phone in rice. Hustle doesn't have it. But this older couple, like 60, 70-year-old couple, is like, oh yeah, we have a bag of rice. So, all right, can I use it? So I put my phone in the rice and I go sit in my car and I wait there.
You don't know where to go.
I know. No idea. And there goes my time. Like I'm going to lose. So I sit there and I'm waiting forever. Finally, I'm like, all right, I'm taking a nap. I wake up about, 2 or 3 a.m. My phone's semi doable. I'm like, all right, well, I already know the way up. I'm going to go do it. So I ran up Snowden again, up the proper path. Because when I was coming down Gribgotch, I could see where I should have gone. So I'm like, all right, now I'm going to do this the proper way. So I run up the proper way up Gribgotch with my phone in the rice. Because I know my phone's kind of on, it's coming back to life. So I run up, not Gribgotch, I run up, what was the piggy pen or something like that?
Pig track.
Yeah. Yeah. So I ended up running up Pig Track, which is a million times easier. I'm like, this my grandma could do in the daylight. So I get up it, come back down immediately. So I touch the peak, get down, plug my phone in.
She just peaked Snowden twice.
Within a couple hours. Like I ran them. Like I came back fast and I was like, all right, cool. Get down to the car. My phone is kind of like on the fritz still. Like it's not, I can't see it. It's kind of like blurry. Like, they have all lines in it. So I'm like, all right, but I can hear it and it's saying where to go. So I use it to navigate me to Scotfell. So I get to Scotfell and it's like beautiful.
That sounds so easy with the fact that your phone was
right. Well, it was telling me where to go.
Like it was just down the road.
But everybody beforehand was so worried about me. I had a friend from Birmingham. Everybody's going to kill me for just saying it how I said it. But Birmingham or something.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy. He was one of the guys I met in Bali. And so stopped by with him before I did all this. And they were like thinking I'm crazy for doing it by myself. Like the mom was his girlfriend, who's now his wife, her mom was going to take the day off just to like make sure I was safe and go drive me. And I'm like, to me, it's like, what? It's like 3 hours between the first two and then maybe like 6 between the next one or something like that. And I'm like, it's like a long day's work for us in the US. Like that's not even the length of California. So I was like, I'm good. And I'm getting a stop to go exercise. I'm like, I'll be wide awake. Like I'm used to driving 8 to 10 to 12 hours in California from Oregon to California growing up. Like I was so used to it. I'm like, this is nothing. And so I was like, all right, this will be cake. I'll get out, I'll run Scotfell, I'll be wide awake, and then I'll continue on. And so having to drive, and this probably sounds very unsafe, but having to drive when I'm on like country roads and no one's around, I'm like throwing my clothes over the side or the passenger seat so they can kind of dry out and I'm getting my next clothes ready. And so I stop the car, boom, throw all my clothes. And as I'm running up Scotfell, like running up through it to the parking lot, I'm like, hey, what's the weather looking like? It's clear day. And the guy's like, I could change that in an instant. I got to bring something. I'm like, I'm not bringing anything. I have time to make up. So I don't bring a single thing up Scotfell. I'm just hoping that'll work. And I just book it up. No hoodie, no anything. And I book it up, touch the top, take a picture, start running back down. There's this lady. They're like, oh my God, we just saw you come up. We're almost there. And I'm like, how do I break this to you? It's like, you are nowhere near the top. I'm going very fast right now. I don't want to break it to you, sweetheart, but you're nowhere near the top. It's one of those things of like, you're almost there. I was like, I can't say that to you. So I was running back down, hop in my car, and I get this guy running over to me. And he was like, hey, is your name Justin True? And I was like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, oh, you might want this. It's my credit card. I was using for everything. Whoa. And I guess I dropped it when I was running out of I guess I just look like an American. So, or look like a Justin True. And he's like, save my day. Like that would have ruined my whole trip. There's no way I would have been able to fill the gas or get food or anything. I was done for. So from there on out, head up to Ben Nevis, get to Ben Nevis and come down at a reasonably decent time. I thought Ben Nevis was going to be a lot harder than what it was. I'm disappointed that I didn't see it during the day. I wish I would do it because it was I could see it like through like I'm trying to think of a picturesque word for it. And like the moonlit sky of like kind of the ground beneath us. And it was obviously such a beautiful night out. The top was terrifying because I'm looking at my phone and I'm trying to find where the peak is because I can't see the peak. And they have these giant, almost, I guess you call them like cliffs maybe, but these giant rock stacks. And I guess they're for people to not get lost up there, but there's so much fog, I couldn't see anywhere. And so I'm looking at my phone, trying to figure out where the highest point is, to where the peak is. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, I'm not there, but I'm like, I don't see anywhere higher, but I'm going to keep going until I find it. And obviously back then I cared about technicalities, which I don't think there is any like official book. So I'm like looking for it, and I come to this like horseshoe of like this cliff. It's like falling off, and I'm like, oh man, I should probably look up and not just follow my phone. Like it was just a drop off of a cliff at the top. But in order to get from like point to point, you had to find the plyths because they were like 8 feet tall or something. So you could see them at least. Those are the only things you could see is like one plyth to the next. But I'd get in the middle of one and I'd look back and I couldn't see it. Like the fog would just keep rolling in. And so that was kind of like freaky up there. And I did have my bag with me, and I found a little emergency shelter at the top that you could get into if things got a little bit dodgy. But I just foolishly kept going on because I don't really know what it means to stop. I'm like, I'll just find my way. One day it's going to come back and bite me in the butt. But until then, I'm going to keep going. And so I just kept finding the points and got to the highest part of the peak, turned back around. And like, that was the most terrifying part of like, I should probably just stop and just camp for the night, go into this little emergency shelter and just hide. But ended up finding my way down somehow. And eventually you get below the fog and you see like the land beneath it and all the creeks and stuff. And it's, like 11 p.m. at night or something. And it's gorgeous. And I'm like, dang it, I really should just stay up here. But yeah, eventually ended up getting down to the car. So
What an adventure.
Yeah, it was a good one. Ended up doing 4 peaks, I guess.
In 24 hours, was it?
Yep. Yeah. The 3 were definitely in 24 hours. The 4th was not. That had a little nap in between. So I had to restart.
You put your own little kind of...
Yeah. Yeah.
Your own little slant on it.
Yeah. A very me-esque journey of nothing prepared and just winging it.
This is an interesting point about you, actually, because from some of your other challenges that you've done, I've read that you haven't always necessarily had the biggest preparation time going into them. You just kind of have a screw it, just do it attitude to some of them. Let's, I guess, start with your world's strongest marathon.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just a 26 miles pulling a 1.5 ton car.
Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah. Typical Sunday or Saturday, whatever it was.
To many people, running a marathon is a tremendous challenge. To many other people, pulling a car down a street is enough of a challenge. Yeah. What made you think that you could do it over 26.2 miles?
Because someone asked, why don't I do it over 13.1? Why don't I start with a half? And so I thought, all right, watch me.
Landing at number 4 is what my mom has told me was her favourite episode. And that's with the incredible Geraldine McFaul, who completed an absolutely mind-blowing journey, walking from her home in Glasgow all the way to Rome. Now, Geraldine will be the first to admit she's not the most athletic person, but her story is proof that it's not about being the fittest or fastest. It's about setting a goal, breaking it down, and showing up every day. By taking her enormous journey just one step at a time, she turned what seemed like an impossible challenge into a life-changing reality. Her message is simple but powerful. No goal is beyond your reach if you're willing to take it one day at a time. In this clip, she shares how she faced the daily challenge of finding places to sleep and how the kindness of strangers took her journey in an entirely new direction. It's a powerful reminder of how unexpected acts of generosity can shape and transform an adventure in ways we least anticipate.
I set out thinking that, I'll walk 6 days out of 7. I'll have a day off each week. I don't even think I was into week 2 before I realised that I'm having a really tough day today. I'm having a day off tomorrow. And that then became my routine. But generally, with the camping, I thought I would wild camp. I'd come back to the wild camping. But yeah, I had my camping gear and I was going to find somewhere at roughly 12, 14 miles each day. And that's where Google Maps and my route was dictated roughly by routes and where, is there somewhere at the end, is there a village or a campsite? But invariably I got into the routine of popping into the village pub when I got to what I thought would be the end of today. Sometimes that was lunchtime, and ask, is there somewhere around here I could camp? And that had me then camping in pub gardens. It had me camping in church grounds. But also customers would say, well, actually, come and camp in my garden. And I did that. Or some customers said, well, never mind the garden. Come in, we've got a spare room. And even if I was camping in the garden, they would, feed me and get me breakfast the next morning and send me off, usually with a bit of a packed lunch tucked into Roman, and off I would go. So I never knew today where I was sleeping tonight and what mode of sleeping, sort of where I would be sleeping, but I just knew that it would be fine.
Yeah, it's good, I suppose, to have different options. The camping was there for when you needed somewhere where you didn't have anywhere.
Yep.
And you were comfortable doing that. But your credit card is also a really useful tool for when you just get really wet, or you're feeling really tired and feeling really low. Yes. And it's knowing that you don't have to. This journey doesn't have to be to your own detriment.
Absolutely.
In the long term, and it's finding a good balance. It's like, yes, I want to try and enjoy being out in nature, but sometimes that's going to be hard to do because I'm not going to want that.
I did treat myself now and again to B&Bs and hotels. That's that's no confession on that, because I think that's a reasonable thing to do. I'm aware of the privilege of being able to do that, but certainly that was my option as well. But I did enjoy the camping too, especially in the better weather. But yeah, I always knew that I had the bailout option, and I took it.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned you had the kind nappers who took you in.
Yes.
People having you in your gardens, in their houses, feeding you. And I guess what also happened is that it became a snowball effect, is that people who took you in would ask you where your next destination is. And because that's actually not that far away, they would be like, oh, we know someone there. And there's obviously occasions when they would be helping you find connections in places before you even got there.
Yes. Yeah, that did happen as well. I was being passed along by kind nappers, people waiting for me, literally along the way. And there was also people that I met, they were saying, oh, you must be Geraldine. Hang on. And it's because they had been told there's a woman walking with a trailer and look out for her, she's coming your way. And even that wasn't necessarily kind nappers. They were kind nappers in a way that, to me, they are, because they would sort of wish me good luck, ask me what I was doing, and invariably give a donation to charities as well, even just people that I met on the street. But I often think that it's as much about giving people the opportunity to help because they want to help, as it is receiving the help. That they would, be often people were thanking me. There was one family that I stayed with where the husband had dementia. And obviously over dinner then there was a lot of chat, and I was talking about mum and how her sort of dementia had developed and her little peculiarities. And the next day the daughter, a grown daughter, came walking with me for a mile or two, and she was saying that, she said, it's been so good for my mum to hear you talking. It's given her some sort of confidence and validation of what she's going through as a wife with her husband with dementia. And I think probably it prompted her to realise that she was now in a position where she needed to ask for help. So they were thanking me for them taking me in for the night, which seemed the wrong way around, but everybody wins.
That's an incredible part of the story, actually, knowing that people needed you to come into their lives.
Yeah.
This person who was just walking through past their front yard.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, I felt great, feeling like I've kept in touch with them. But I felt like I had something to offer, not consciously, but it's just a natural thing to talk about. And I could recognise some of the things that he was doing that mum would do, and I was able to give examples of how I had sort of dealt with it. So it felt good.
Your buggy, your jetmobile, your Roman, that you were pulling along, turns heads. It attracts attention. So what was generally the kind of reaction that people were giving you when they just saw you walking by with this?
Well, what on earth? And there was a lot of people thought there was a child, and I confessed that it had to be an ugly child because it was covered over with a cover, or a dog. Some people thought it was a dog. And they could see I had my logo on the front, so you could see if you were close to me, then people say, home to Rome, what are you doing? I'm walking to Rome. And certainly in the UK, that was just, crazy. You can't, and there were people that said you can't do that. And there was also people who said, how are you going to do it? How can you do that? And I'm thinking, well, put one foot in front of the other. That was just me being a little bit sarcastic in my own head. I never said that to anybody out loud. But yes, it was generally a shock for people because it is unusual. Nobody got irritated by it. It was if I was obstructing the road and I just stopped and waited till they passed, but yeah, it did draw attention. And I realised it was handy. Whenever I was going to a cafe or somewhere, I would deliberately have it sitting so that people could see the logo, and that would, sort of draw a little bit of attention and get the conversation going, because my purpose was to share the awareness and raise funds for the charities. So I got quite good at subtly letting people know what was happening, and it was successful.
That's such a great opener as well.
Yeah.
And doing a journey on your own, it's nice to have some time on your own for the reflection, but when you're doing it day by day, you do really need some kind of warmth from someone else, and some smiles, some conversation.
Absolutely.
And I suppose arriving in a village or town, a cafe or a pub, was a really crucial part of your day for your own mental health, to kind of actually have some connection with a human as well.
Yeah, and I think you're saying about me standing out, if I was walking through a town or village, even if I wasn't intended to stop there, by drawing the attention, I invariably would say hello to everybody that I passed, and I would get a hello and a chat with everybody that I passed. But absolutely, going to cafes and pubs and places at the end, or even in the middle of the day, it was always a good opportunity to be around people and chat with people, and for me to learn from them as well as the other way around.
Holding steady at number 3, and well done for making it this far, is my conversation with Danny Bent, adventurer, author, and so-called happiness guru. Danny uses adventure as a powerful tool for positive change. He's a true pioneer, founding the free fitness community Project Awesome well before such communities became as wildly popular as they are today. He believes happiness isn't just a destination, but something we can cultivate through the way we live and the choices we make. For Danny, embracing the unknown and stepping into challenges with an open heart has led to a profound personal transformation and a deeper sense of fulfillment. Danny came into this recording after having what he described as a profound experience just days before. He showed up ready to be open, raw, and deeply reflective about his personal journey with happiness and his quest to find his authentic self. In this clip, Danny shares how being labelled a happiness guru affected his own struggles with authenticity and staying true to who he really is. During the height of your time being the ringleader of this colourful, vibrant health fitness community, you were put in the top 100 happiest people who make life better for others. Is that something you're happy with?
Yes, that was a transformative moment in my life. Just a nod. I think one of the TV channels that is also under the same umbrella as The Independent came down and ran a little thing about Project Awesome, and they went back and told The Independent that I needed to be in this list, and went to a party where the 100 happiest people in the UK all got invited to it, which you can imagine was a blast. And I just thought it was a nod to say, you were kind of nod that said thank you from the world. But actually it really transformed my life in initially in an absolutely brilliant way. But then maybe it kind of folded back on itself. And so I started getting lots of businesses wanting me to come and talk about my form of happiness, or to come and run Project Awesomes at businesses. And then you're like, oh, well, okay, now I'm actually earning something and I can start paying back my landlady and paying off those credit cards that I put all the weight, financial weight of Project Awesome onto. But then, of course, people were calling me the happiness guru, and I was going to get flaunted from Google to Twitter to HSBC to Nike. I toured America, gave about 7 talks with Nike. I was like, this is absolutely mental. But then they start referring to you as the happiness guru, and of course there's a pressure on that as well.
To always be happy.
Yeah, maybe not to always be happy, but you're getting so many positive reinforcements for being this happy character that you almost subconsciously take it on. Like, I have to be. Yeah. But it's I don't think it was a conscious decision. It was just it was subconscious. Like, oh, I keep getting this. Like, you're getting financial rewards for it. You're getting social rewards and community, like relationship with people, not relationships with other people, like sexual relationships or anything. But there were so many positives coming from it that this little part of me was like, right, use this. This is a great shield for everything in life. And eventually that becomes a toll, and you're spending your life trying to make other people happy rather than being authentically yourself. And that's not a way to live. Yes, it's brilliant to make other people happy. It's brilliant to change other people's lives, but not at the expense of yours, because if you are doing that, there's a limited time frame where you're going to, like, yes, the next year you may still have a lot of people tell you you've changed their life, but just like with Project Awesome, a few years after that, you're not around anymore to be having that effect on people, because I wasn't looking after myself. And again, it comes with a little bit of age, a little bit of wisdom. Just like a nod to that, getting older is absolutely amazing. And our community our society doesn't celebrate age in the same way as maybe a Japanese culture might do. I just think that's really interesting to touch on anyway, that getting older is awesome. You don't have to put Botox into your lips or into your forehead or worry about losing your hair, because you've just got so many more experiences than these younger people, and this definitely in my eyes should be celebrated. Maybe that's because I'm getting older. It's kind of, I'm trying to encourage people to give me a bit more celebration. But yeah, I had to kind of turn and look inward, because it got to a stage, and I do think this isn't just about Project Autumn. It's not about my later years. I think my early years, I was probably making sure mum and dad were happy, making sure my sisters were happy, making sure my friends were happy. But I was getting to a stage where I'd walk into a room, because I was so conscious of everyone else, I would meet people and I'd know things about them before they told me, like hardships in their life. You can just feel it from their demeanor, the slight nuances of their faces and their body movement. And I'd walk into a room and I would be able to tell you exactly what is going on with everyone else. I'd be so aware, pinpoint aware. But the one space in that room that I didn't know what was going on was inside myself. This frame of me, I didn't know what I was feeling. I just knew what everyone else was feeling, and I was judging myself off what they were feeling. And so this last year I've been spending a lot of time trying to turn that slowly, like a kind of a heavy tanker, moving it slowly so that it starts looking inside. And I think that's only just in the last few weeks started happening. And that's another amazing, beautiful experience that I'm getting to go through right now.
What have you been uncovering?
Really just those things. The the fact that I took everyone's happiness, like especially I think my mum's, maybe my dad's, it was in everyone is experiencing trauma in some way, some form. And I, as a young child that thought, you think the world revolves around you, don't you? I thought it was my responsibility to make mum happy, to make dad happy, to make sure my sisters were happy. And then really the biggest part of that is then going forward into relationships. It was like, I have to make sure the people I'm in a relationship with are happy as well. And
was that by being the happiest version of yourself and projecting that to them?
I think that was part of it. That's definitely
so
part
they could see that you were happy and
yes.
that made them happy.
Yes, exactly. I think that's definitely the case, especially if you look back into my childhood. But it also, it kind of became that I would do everything for a partner. So whatever they wanted was the thing we did. Whatever they wanted to eat, we ate. And I lost touch of what I actually wanted. And if you'd asked me, what is it that you've got to, it's your 40th birthday or something. What do you want to happen? I didn't even know. All I wanted to know was the things I actually said some things when someone said this to me, and I was like, and they were like, what are they for? And I was like, well, they just make sure everyone else is happy around me. And this was that moment that clicked of, you don't even know what you want. You just know what other people want. And you are just bringing as much of that into your life as you can. And there needs to be time where you do it for yourself.
You've spent years of your life on, I guess, a public stage, both physical stage with all the talks that you've been doing, but also on the streets of London when you were leading people who really were absorbing. They needed you. They needed your energy every morning to get them through that session, to reward them for their hard work in turning up at that early age, at that early time in the day. So you needed to project this version of yourself that people could absorb. But at what cost was that to you?
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think that people generally enjoy being in my company because, one, they never quite know what's going to happen. It probably could go a little bit bonkers, but also, there's just going to be good energies, good vibes. And yeah, that cost to me is that you don't really exist anymore. You become an avatar, and that avatar is like you're creating it, and then like you do something that has a profound effect on people, so then you do twice as much of that. And yeah, an avatar, a mask, whatever you want to call it, it's you giving a lot and not being even prepared to even consider taking.
Wrapping up at number 2 is my conversation with Sean Conway, adventurer, record breaker, and endurance pro, who had just completed an awe-inspiring 105 consecutive iron distance triathlons, setting a new world record. In our conversation, Sean delves into the mental and physical challenges of such a monumental achievement. His journey is a powerful testament of human endurance and the transformative power of setting bold, audacious goals. In this clip, Sean breaks down his 11 pillars of endurance and reflects on how the failure of his first attempt, which ended after just 7 days, became a crucial turning point that ultimately made him stronger for his record-breaking second attempt.
People ask me, so how do you do these multi-day things? I'm quite good at, and over the years have developed a system of things you've got to focus on every single day. So one's planning, then there's experience, fitness, health, nutrition, hydration, sleep, muscle management, motivation, community. And then I might add discipline. Discipline's the last one, but discipline could also fall into sort of an overall category for all of them, really. But yeah, so you got to nail all of those every single day. You know, if you don't, you'll just be down on power, down on time, really. If one of them, even if one of them's not at best. And yeah, I'm quite good at making sure and sort of overthinking each of those to make sure that I'm at a place where I can sustain a decent enough pace to then get enough sleep.
I want to try and break down these pillars. Maybe if we can throughout the conversation, we'll see. I'm happy to go with the flow as well. Let's start with planning, though.
Yeah.
The first one. You mentioned your first attempt. So a year previous to starting this current record attempt, you attempted in 2022.
Yeah.
The Iron 102 challenge. You got 7 days in. You had an accident on the bike.
Yeah, actually the accident was on day 5 actually.
Oh.
But I went to day 7, yeah, and then I missed the cutoff, so it was over. Yeah.
At that time, it must have been very difficult because I know that a lot of work goes into just preparing to even start on day 1. You've had to organise your sponsors, you've got a crew, you've got a social media plan, and then you've got all the gear, you've got the location sorted, and then you begin what you hope is going to be 102 days of a challenge, of a fitness challenge. And it derails itself after a week, which must have been very, very tough for you at the time. But in hindsight, how important was it to have that week's experience and then have the months following to actually say, okay, that was a good way to test this, and now I've learned how I can make it better going forward?
Yeah, there was probably 3 or 4 days after that where I was like, well, this sucks. You know, I'd cancelled a lot of work to be, as you say, away for 3.5 months. Paid the crew up front. A lot of these sort of things. So all of a sudden I'm stuck with a year with nothing to do. Well, an empty diary and an injury and a failure. So, you know, that was tough for a few days. But I'm quite good at bouncing back. So, you know, the first thing I thought was, as you said, well, that went wrong, so let's work out why and let's fix it. And then the other thing, I actually got quite excited. I was like, I've got another 9 months of training. Brilliant. I know I love training. Like I would, the fact that I had another 9 months to get even stronger, like really excited me. So there was that. But then the failure bit really made people go, well, he's just not up for it. Like, he just can't do it, you know. And people said that even before, when I announced it on day 1, the internet kind of went a bit mad. Like, who's this guy? Who does he think he can? Like, you know, what? Weirdly, like, no one bothered even going onto my website and looking at my history. They just thought I was this random guy who thought, oh, I can do it. And then when I failed, like, I could feel them going, yeah, I told you. Yeah. And I'm like, guys, have you even bothered to look at my website? Like, this record had my name all over it, you know, if you look at everything else I've done. And so yeah, that was a bit annoying. I should have done 5 beforehand in my training, but there's a complexity of things. I only thought of the idea in the December of 21, and I thought, right, how, you know, what's the shortest amount of time I can train for this? James said he trained in 6 months to do his 101. So, okay, well, I could probably, you know, let's try 6 months. I knew it wasn't quite enough, but I thought, right, let me just scrape through the first week, take it slow, don't push it hard, you know, do the 16, 17 hours, just do it within the cutoff. And I'll hopefully just kind of get into it. And then, you know, looking for sponsors. I eventually got sponsors only like about a month before the start in July. I still didn't have a bike a couple of weeks before the start. I didn't have a wetsuit a couple of weeks before the start. I didn't have shoes a couple of weeks before the start because of COVID supply chain issues. So my bike sponsor were like, they were one of the first people to get on board. They were like, yeah, brilliant. We'll sort you out. And I needed 3 bikes in case one broke. And then I needed to rotate one as well. They could only get me 1. and they only gave it to me a week before the start. And I said, I'm sorry, we just don't have any more. Like, there's supply. We don't have any. Like, and I was like, how? You're the biggest bike manufacturer in the world. How can you not get me a bike? So that was frustrating. And the same thing, with the shoes, eventually the head office of my shoe sponsor had to just buy them from a local shop and get them sent to me. Because again, just COVID ruined all their supply chain. All the signs were saying delay the start, delay the start, delay the start. And I sort of knew I should have delayed it till April this year anyway, which would have given me 14 months of training or 15 months of training, which is more realistic, I think. I think 6 months is not nearly enough to train for doing 105. Yeah, you might be able to wing it, but you're going to have a tough time. Like I had a tough time on that first week. And yeah, I did come off the bike, right? So there's also that. So I fell off the bike when I was trying to get food out my back pocket, hit a pothole, veered left into a bush, went over the handlebars, hood bent in, and my left leg stayed clipped into the pedal. And that just tweaked the tendon from my shin to the top of my foot. And 3 days. So that was on day 5. By day 6, it was a little worse. By day 7, I'd missed the cutoff. And that was it. So it was game over. So there's also that. But yeah, if you look at James Lawrence's 101, he said he did 6 months training and he got a stress fracture on day 3. So I think there's a lot of signs that say 6 months training is not enough. So I was just copying James. He's like, well, if he can do it in 6 months, I can do it in 6 months. But the other things that went wrong with my route planning and things like that from the last time, and I'd already changed those by day 7 on my last attempt. So I'd already moved to a pool, and I'd already changed my run route and my bike course. They were all then flat again. So I was sort of being proactive with my decision making and not just settling. And when things going wrong, I'm hustling. I'm like, right, why is it going wrong? Okay, my run is terrible. The route I chose was terrible. The bike course was okay, but I needed something a bit flatter, and I changed it. I adapted. So. And my bike, I think my bike time on the day 7 was one of my fastest bike times. So I was getting better anyway, but the injury was just too much. So, but yeah, in hindsight, I should have just given it a year, and I should have done 5 in the prep, but I couldn't have. I just didn't have the time, or the kids didn't have a bike the week before. So yeah, there's a lot of excuses I've just given, haven't I? But it's more, I know what I did wrong now.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you never know until you hit the start line, and with an endurance event that's going to last months, you have the benefit of winging it initially, and then over time things can come on board, and hopefully momentum can build and things can slot together, which I guess was probably your hope at the time.
Sort of, yeah. There was, and I kicked myself a little bit, really, because I knew that you can't really get into fitness for the 105 without being at a pretty good fitness to start with. Now, because everything, when I cycled around the world, I hit the start line super strong, because I knew I'd fatigue. So, and if once you're on the back of the wave, you just never recover. You got to be on the front of the wave so that you're fast enough to get enough sleep each night to go fast again tomorrow. If you go too slow, you don't get enough sleep, you're going slow again tomorrow.
You attempted to break the record for the fastest cycle around the world. Around
the world, yeah, in 2012, yeah. So that one I was strong to start, and I knew that doing the Iron 105, I should probably have been the same, but again, I was just impatient. The thought of, from December 21, waiting till April 23, I was too far away for me. The terrier in me was like, well, I can't wait that long. We're going. Come on, boy.
And finally, at number 1, the most listened to episode is my conversation with Anna Jackson, a former photographer who returned to her family farm during the pandemic and discovered a newfound passion for farming. Her connection to the land deepened even further when she learned that her dad had been quietly transitioning the farm to regenerative farming practices. What began as a return to family roots blossomed into a journey of rediscovery and transformation, a beautiful story of personal growth and environmental innovation. Anna was also featured in the British documentary 6 Inches of Soil, which explores the world of regenerative farming. Now, interestingly, the podcast episode I recorded with the filmmakers of that documentary has gone on to have the largest number of views on this show's YouTube channel. Proof of how popular the subject of regen farming is. But what's so special about Anna's story is how it weaves together the larger conversation about regenerative farming with her personal experience and connection she has to her family's farm. Her passion for this way of farming radiates when she speaks. And in this clip, Anna glows with excitement as she breaks down exactly what regenerative farming is and why it matters so much.
Regenerative farming, this is my second show and tell of the day, is these are the principles of regenerative
farming. Okay, so you've
farming.
got this tea towel.
I have a tea towel.
Which has
yes.
this beautiful illustration on.
Yeah, so I got this from Groundswell, and Groundswell is like the festival for farmers.
Right.
So farmers go, it happens once a year. I don't want to tell too many people about it because it's already getting quite busy.
Oh, okay.
But I feel like...
We'll keep it secret.
Yeah, everybody keep it between yourselves. But basically you go and it's very chilled. It's run by the Cherry family, who are a family of farmers. Great family. And they basically put on workshops and seminars. They're all in sort of tents like you'd see at Glastonbury. We actually had Groove Armada perform at the last Groundswell. So
okay.
Pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But they are very much pushing either regenerative or future farming techniques that are hark back to sort of nature friendly and environmentally friendly. And in regenerative agriculture, can you see that?
Yeah, we have the 5 principles of regenerative agriculture, which we have diversity, livestock integration, protect the soil surface, minimize soil disturbance, and then if you just lift it up over the microphone, and then maintaining living roots. Okay.
Yeah, so these are basically all the things that Gabe said in his book. And when I came home, Dad had done minimalized soil disturbance. So he'd been doing that for the past 8 years. So the day he decided he was doing this, he sold the plough. So
a plough is quite a fundamental instrument in any farmer's kind of
it is
machinery, right?
The instrument.
Yeah. It's how you get the soil ready to then plant seeds.
Yeah.
Essentially, which is the fundamental part of any kind of cropping process.
Yeah. So Dad read this book and then the next day sold the plough, which you'll find is a key sort of trait. Similar to you, jumps right in. Dad doesn't, we're quite different in that aspect. But yeah, so he sold it and then, however, we'll come back to this in a minute, but we don't want to demonize the plough. The plough isn't a bad thing, but for right now in our journey, it was a bad thing.
So, I mean, before we move on, if you could define regenerative agriculture, is it those 5 things that is the definition of it, or what is the kind of the top line?
Regenerative agriculture is basically trying to bring back soil health. So for years, we've been eroding, degrading, chemically filling our soils, okay? And those soils have lost all of their organic matter, like depleted, kind of. So regenerative agriculture is trying to bring back those top bits of soil, those top 6 inches of soil, and fill them with living roots, fill them with organic matter, fill them with organic manure, like just revive them basically, fill them with bugs and insects. And that's what this is trying to do. And the idea is that it'll stop flooding, will be more weatherproof, global warming wise, and also it's healthier for us. So if you were to test a carrot that's been grown in a conventional system, I mean, carrots are difficult because it's really hard to grow carrots in a regenerative system. So say wheat. If you were to test wheat that's been grown in a conventional system full of chemicals, and then you test one that's been on a regenerative journey for the past 9-10 years, say, that will be so much more nutritionally dense for you than the conventional wheat.
Wow, so even the food itself, the crop, will taste and be more nutritiously different than one grown non-regeneratively.
Yeah, so you hear people with all these gut problems, and gut is like a really important word at the moment. But like, we need to fill our gut with nutritionally dense, healthy food. And obviously organic can do that, but you can also get organic farms that have minimal soil health as well. So their soils are kind of dying off a little bit. Without a good rotation, so the different plants that you crop every year, you plant every year, you don't necessarily have nutritionally dense food. You have to put these principles into play. And I think the biggest one for me, because I love sheep so much, thanks to Timmy, is livestock integration.
Okay, let's come to that in a second. Just so I can get my head around this and people listening can understand. The way I see this is that let's take a typical field.
Yes.
With typical farming, with ploughing, you're disturbing the topsoil.
Yeah. Ploughing's very deep. Current ploughing.
Okay.
So we'd be disturbing a good... Yeah, you'd be bringing up the bottom soil,
and a good topsoil, you mentioned these 6 inches of soil, would be nutritiously dense. And it's the best way to grow something in, because any seed can have all the nutrients and any plant can grow from that. But by ploughing a field, you're disturbing the soil. And because you're turning it up, you're making it unstable, right?
Yeah, so basically, if you were to shallow plough and just disturb the top 6 inches, and within your rotation, so rotation is the crops that you plant every year, if you were to do that and you only ploughed every 9 years, it would be fine. You can still plough on a farm. But if you're ploughing every single year, that soil is constantly rotating. And if you're ploughing super deep as well, you're disturbing all of that goodness, and it doesn't have a chance to sort of establish itself and maintain the living roots and maintain the organic matter, because it's being moved about. Its habitat is literally being destroyed.
And this has been a problem with industrial farming for decades, right?
Yeah, and we've been doing this as a farm.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up, apart from our organic stint that we had, I grew up on a farm like this. So chemicals weren't the norm.
And so this was like a compound effect, because if you disturb the soil and the soil health wasn't great, you'd then have to bring in raw materials to try and bring back nutrients to create a space to grow stuff, right?
Yeah, so it was a really clever business model, farming. So farming used to be obviously non-chemical led, and then we had the wars, and during the war they found an element which basically they used to create bombs, and they discovered that the same element could make your crop go twice as high.
This is a fertilizer.
Yeah. So they basically were like, oh, let's put this all over our crops. And because we needed to feed people, because it's the war, we needed more food. This was important. So food then, nutrition went out the window, and how much food we were creating became important.
It was a quantity over quality.
And then farmers' fields almost like got addicted to this. They were like, let's put more on and more on. And then the government came out with a regulation that you should be putting this much nitrogen on your fields. So then farmers are like, well, I'm going to put this much nitrogen on. And then with nitrogen, because the plant doesn't have its natural defense, because it's weak, because you're filling it with chemicals, then you're going to get diseases. Then you're going to get bugs coming along. Oh no, we've got bugs coming along. Let's use an insecticide to kill off the bugs. Then it'll stop our plant from rotting. So everything was like, oh, we're in trouble. Let's find another chemical. Let's use another different chemical. This chemical didn't work. Let's try another chemical. So
and soon you got this cocktail of chemicals.
Which then your farm is addicted to, right? And then this cocktail of chemicals, the price magically goes up. Oh no, but you're addicted to this cocktail of chemicals. You can't not buy it. So then farmers are just getting worse and worse off, because they're just having to buy more and more and more expensive chemicals that are going up every year.
Right.
And you can go cold turkey and be like, I'm going to not use any chemicals. That's fine. But then your farm, you call it yield. So that's how much produce one field creates. Your yield could go from 8 to 4. And with £8 you can make a profit, but with 8 ton you can make a profit, but with 4 you'd make a loss.
Right.
So 1 year you can be in profit, the next year making.
And what's to incentivize any farmer to do that if they're knowing that they could be making money with the process that they're doing now? But if they were to just completely stop that, they would actually be losing money.
And it's scary because there are farmers on rented land who, like, if they make the big change too quickly, that's why we call regenerative agriculture a journey. Like, if they make the change too quickly, they could lose all of their money. And that would be them. They wouldn't be farmers again. Because tenanted farmers are the bravest farmers out there. You know, they're taking gambles every single day. And I just hold my hat off to them. I think they're incredible. But yeah, you can't take a risk in farming because you could be out of the business. But then you have to take risks because else, you know, stuff can happen.
Thanks for listening to this special episode of Great British Adventures. If any of the guests have inspired you to learn more about them and their stories, please check out the show notes where I'll provide links to their full conversations. If you've loved this compilation episode and want to hear more, just let me know. Thank you.